Speaker's announced policy of January 9th, 2023. The gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Schweikert, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. For anyone out there who's insane enough to have C-SPAN on, I may suggest requisitioning a life, but if you don't want someone to talk to you like an adult, if you don't want someone doing big math, big numbers, and being serious, I'm sure there's a video out there of a parakeet playing a piano someplace. Please leave now. Today I was actually going to try to come here and do the happy, positive talk. I actually had put together some boards of some really good things that had happened. And then we made the mistake of, on my flight, the staff was actually looking at the trust funds that were collapsing over the next few years. People forget, Medicare trust fund is gone within 7 years. And we can't actually work out the math of how devastating that will be, because about 40% of all Medicare spend comes through that trust fund, but it's almost all the money that Medicare patients receive at the hospital level. So let's first, I do have one happy slide, so we're going to do that one, and then we're going to go on to the reality. And let me sort of make a point. We're going to have the fight over, the continuing resolution, or the budget, or these things, and people are going to do their political posturing, and we're going to fight and fight. Please understand, it's all important. It's rounding of the rounding errors of what's really going on. You're going to see some slides here where you got to understand every dime we vote on as members of Congress is now borrowed. Plus another $300 billion, and that's in this fiscal year. And it gets dramatically worse over the next few years. So if you actually, somewhere in your head, think, well, if we just got rid of waste and fraud and got rid of foreign aid, we'd be fine. Foreign aid is 12 days of borrowing. Why is it so hard for this place to grow up and understand the most basic parts of math? So, all right, I went off track there. I apologize. Let's go back. So how many of you saw this article? These are happy things. These are also things that are moral. They could make incredible differences. They could also save billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. I've been tracking the researchers on this, and I think it's University of Chicago. They had this crazy idea. Say, okay, we give people vaccines to train their body to attack things. How about if we gave a vaccine to train their body not to attack things? Okay, but if you think about multiple sclerosis is your body attacking your nerve systems. And one of my reasons I'm interested in it, we had a horrible, horrible family tragedy in regards to multiple sclerosis when I was very, very young. But the concept of sort of an inverse vaccine to take on autoimmune diseases, and it turns out type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. So I've been coming to this mic for years talking about the research on being able to replant islet cells back into the body, either through stem cells or the one that's been now FDA approved, which actually is islet cells that are bleached from cadavers and adjusted with CRISPR so your body doesn't need anti-rejection drugs, to now this concept of we're just going to teach your body not to attack. This is a big deal. There's some wonderful things happening. Now the really interesting question, will we be so broke as a country and a society that the ability to actually make the investment to do what's moral, that actually also lowers future borrowing? So look, today we finally crossed the 33 trillion. And some people are going to light their hair on fire. It's a big deal. It's about to get dramatically worse. This number we're going to look back on fondly the way we're going right now. Do understand, we now have, and we don't bet money, but we do have a little pool going with some of our staff and some of our economists of what will the fiscal borrowing be this year. Remember, the administration is trying to play some games where they're going to try to credit themselves back some of the student loan money that the Supreme Court said they can't spend. So we're actually looking at the real-life borrowing number, not the fiscal deficit number, which has a journal entry fraud in it. And as of a couple hours ago, so far this fiscal year, and we still have a couple weeks left, I think we've borrowed $2,158 billion. Now, I don't want to win because I'm the idiot who said we're going to borrow $2,200 billion. Please understand. A year ago, Congressional Budget Office, 2002 May, said this year we'd borrow about 860 billion. Does something seem wrong in those numbers? 860 some billion over here. Now it looks like we're going to borrow 2.2 trillion. And almost every dime of that growth is healthcare costs exploded, particularly in Medicare. Tax receipts have fallen fairly dramatically. So much for this Biden socialized economy. I mean, we've handed out a couple $1 trillion of money to build factories, to subsidize this, to subsidize that. This was actually their modern monetary policy. Okay, you now have proof in the pudding. They set off inflation, and tax receipts have actually fallen. You know, I mean, if anyone wants to write an academic paper on monetary, modern monetary policy, you got the laboratory right in front of you. It collapsed. And what's the third thing that's actually gone against us this year? Interest. We've been tracking, bond market has not been treating us kindly. And we were playing with some math the other day, maybe another additional, on top of everything else, $160 billion of interest. Now, those are big numbers. Almost no one can process that sort of math. But let's actually walk through it in a way you can all understand. If you look at the last 12 months, we borrow over $72,000. We borrow, not spend, borrow. Because we're borrowing about 30% of all of our spending. We borrow about $72,000 a second. About $20,000 a second is interest. And next year, my math, and look, I'm a little more dour than some of the people around me, but my math has us closing in on $800 billion of borrowing, $800 billion of interest, just interest next year. And I'm going to show you a chart saying, please pay attention, that's almost defense. I mean, there was a time this place would have been losing its mind if I came to you and said, well, interest next year would be pretty much what we spend on defense. Oh, David, that could never happen. Ta-da! How many times have you heard anyone come behind these microphones showing any concern? Instead, we're going to do the theater on rounding errors. I'm going to stop another 50 million here. That's a big deal, fine. But don't think it does anything. Did I mention we're borrowing over 72,000 a second? Because this is really difficult math, and it's really uncomfortable. And back to my opening statement, if you're someone that doesn't like hearing something that's uncomfortable, please go watch something else. What's the primary driver of U.S. sovereign debt? Yeah, a bunch of it, at least the current cycle, is a bunch of stupid things the Democrats did last year when they had power here. But no, right now, today and over the next 30 years, what's the primary driver? It's our demographics. We got old. We made lots of promises. They're moral promises. They're commitments. And we don't have the cash for them. We don't have the cash flow for them. And we're going to run out of the borrowing capacity for them. But we're not allowed to talk about them, because if you talk about them, you will get unelected around here. Because it's the see no evil thing. We had a president stand behind that podium on the State of the Union and say, you're not allowed to talk about Medicare and Social Security. And everyone got up and applauded. That was immoral. Absolutely immoral. In 9 years, we doubled poverty in America. Last week I came here and was showing some stories of the number of baby boomers who are in retirement, who are living on the street. And in that article, it talked about how many more, I mean, it was a stunning number, how many more by the end of this decade are expected to be living on the street. This is retirement in America. And in 9 years, we cut the average couple's Social Security by $17,400. That's the morality of this place, but you're not allowed to talk about it because that's difficult. So, for those who are not good at math, but like pie charts, let's do this one. The entire discretionary budget, and this chart is a little off because it was some of the original. The actual fully appropriated discretionary budget was $1,831,000,000,000, but we'll use the 1.7 because that's what they printed. But you got to understand, what you see in orange, members of Congress do not get to vote on. We should, but it was this politically safe thing to do is make Social Security, make Medicare, make veterans benefits. We'll put them on a formula. They just happen. But what we vote on is all of defense and the rest of what you think of as government, the State Department, the Supreme Court, our salaries. Every dime of that is borrowed. So that my point here is just very simple. If you have about 1.8, 1.7, that's the entire discretionary budget, including defense, and we're going to borrow $2.2 trillion this year. Every dime we vote on is borrowed, plus about $300 billion. Yay, team! And we'll have people here have little temper tantrums over rounding errors because these numbers are so difficult and so hard to get your head around. We'll do the theater because the theater actually sells. So let's actually walk through how ugly some of this math gets. One of the things, and I've done entire presentations of this concept of interest rate fragility. If you have, remember I just showed you that we crossed over the $33 trillion of borrowing. Well, about 26, 27 trillion of that is what we call publicly borrowed. The rest is actually transfers from trust funds. So the money that's in the Social Security Trust Fund gets borrowed by the Treasury. Treasury gives them interest. So we'll make a big, we're going to pay 50, 60 billion at the end of the month. It's our monthly interest that we pay out to the trust funds for the borrowing. That's why I think my 2.2 trillion borrowing this year is correct. But you forget about all the other bonds that have to be refinanced. If any of you like to watch markets, go grab your phone, go grab it right now, and go look at what interest rates are right now on a U.S. 2-year. How about a U.S. 10-year? You're at the very top of the range. You are seeing interest rates that we have not seen in a dozen years. And that's what we're going to be refinancing. And here's the punchline, 9.6 trillion. 2 trillion of that will be sort of new issue, new borrowing. But the rest of that is what we call refinancing. It's the bonds that come due. So when we're talking about these higher interest rates, it's not on the new virgin borrowing. It's on almost 10 trillion of U.S. sovereign debt that's coming to market. And there was this old adage, I have a U.S. debt instrument. I'm just going to, when it comes due, I'll just put it right back in. That's not what happens. You see foreign governments start to roll out of U.S. sovereigns, but you also see other people who say, look, I can get this interest rate, but now I can go buy corporate paper, or I don't trust U.S. inflation. I got to go put it some other place. If you're bringing almost 10 trillion to market in 2024, is there a chance of a stressed bond auction? Is there a chance of a spike in one? Sure there is. Now, we have some games that with the Fed and the Treasury we can play to gobble up an issuance. But the moment that happens, be prepared that the interest rates we have today look charmingly quaint. But this is the reality. This is what we've done to ourselves. But we're not allowed to talk about it because it requires math. I sort of already gave this one away, but let's do it anyway. So, the defense appropriation bill is about, what, $830 billion. And our best guess is for interest, is $800 billion next year. Think about that. I mean, I just need you to process. Do you remember the old days when you'd meet a liberal and the first words are, just raise taxes on rich people and cut defense spending, we'll be fine. But guys, interest now is pretty much equal to defense spending. Does anyone care? Will anyone talk about this? Will anyone pay attention? Or we just go back to our theatrics because there's no reporter that's going to write this. There's no blogger out there that's going to pay any attention to it. And look, you know, if you're selling clickbait on the internet, you're not going to do any of this. This requires an intellect. This requires thinking. May even require a calculator. And I've just grown so weary. How do you save a society? Because remember the very first slide, there's good things happening if we would embrace those things and run with it. I did entire presentations here week after week on showing, you know, if you took on diabetes, I even came here and talked about things you're not allowed to talk about. Took on obesity in America. Turns out it's the single most powerful thing from a debt standpoint and economic growth standpoint and morality standpoint of making your brothers and sisters healthier or letting them be healthier. Function got, I mean, a handful of academics were just thrilled to death that Schweikert's willing to talk about this. Everyone else goes, yeah, but it didn't make me angry. We basically, the political class around here on the left and the right, we just sell having people be pissed off. Great. Did I mention we're borrowing $70,000+ a second? Do you think that your anger is going to, and look, this is something, and I do this almost every day with reporters. The working middle class in this country has every right to be angry. It would be crazy if they weren't. They are poorer today than they were a couple years ago. If you live in my community, Scottsdale, Phoenix, and you're not making 20% more today than you were 2 years ago, you are poorer today. This is what the left brought upon us. And when they go, oh no, it wasn't us, it was supply chains, read your own academic papers. Even the most moderate academic papers say, yeah, about half the inflation came from the excessive spending the Democrats engaged in their insanely named Inflation Reduction Act. And now the last several months, it's 100% the derivatives of their excessive spending. Read your own literature. And there'll be big words. You might need a dictionary. To my brothers and sisters on the left, take responsibility for what you did. You made people poor. Now you want to know why they're angry. But when you start seeing numbers that we're going to borrow just next year, every dime equal to defense will be borrowed, does that not set off any alarm bells? And look, some of these next slides are going to start getting geekier and geekier, but they're trying to make a point. And this isn't Schweikert math. We grab these things from CBO and OMB and some of the academic institutions because we're trying to reach out there because it's been shocking. We spent hours and hours and hours today trying to work on the Medicare Trust Fund, which is gone in 7 years. You've got to understand, it's empty in 7 years. And how hard it was just trying to find out where, okay, if that's several $100 billion that goes to hospitals and the trust fund's gone, what is the cash flow, remaining cash flow able to cover? And we're going to have to spend another week working on that. You'd think that would pop. It's within 7 years. We couldn't find any decent research that was walking us through the math. That gives you an idea how sick this place is. With some of the biggest, these aren't little numbers. These are the types of things you plan decades for, except we're not allowed to talk about things like that. So look, been trying once again to sort of show even the numbers we know today. I'm not going to take a shot at CBO. CBO's job is to produce projections as they know it. But darn it, they've been missing the numbers. And first off, the interest rates we're at, we weren't supposed to be here right now. Remember, we were all supposed to be into the economic slowdown, interest rates were supposed to be falling. So we're even doing some math, just sort of showing even some of our worst case scenarios, we're off by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in additional interest if we start using these current interest rates. So we did this one because this one's the simplest to understand. If interest rates rise by 1% over the CBO projections, remember, CBO's already missed the projections by, I think it's 1+%. The fiscal year, so 10 years from now, budget deficit will be about $500 billion more than we already expect. So are you prepared in the 10-year window, so 9 budget years from now, to functionally have a $3.7 trillion deficit? That's 9 years from now. And this isn't a projection, this is pretty much where we're at. $3.7 trillion in 9 years. Because our brothers and sisters on the left needed to spend lots and lots of cash, hand it out, buy their votes, buy their industries, buy their love from corporate America, which they did. Set off inflation and won't admit it. They made people poor. Now they wonder why they're angry. And now we got to figure out how to survive this. So let's actually walk through some of the Democrat solutions. How about we use this one? Even confiscating all income over $500,000. So we'll actually take, and first off, the deficit number here on yours is absolutely wrong, but this is an old chart. So if you took one of the Democrat proposals saying you make $500,000, the next dollar, it's all government. So you pay your regular taxes, and then if you make $500,000 or every dime, it's just government money. And it's federal government money, not your state and local. The federal government takes every dime of it. We're now actually seeing a deficit projection of a couple $2 trillion next year. Taking every dime over $500,000 produces about $1.5 trillion. It wouldn't even come close to covering this year's deficit. This is taking every dime over $500,000. Huh? But I was told by Bernie Sanders we'd be fine. And I've done this dozens of times, so I'm not going to belabor it. We've actually, one of the real ways you would do this sort of math is you do it by percentages of GDP, and we did those and we walked people through showing that all the Democrat tax proposals of confiscating money or doing something, it's probably unconstitutional, we'll know probably this time next year, of taxing and confiscating unrealized capital gains, the oligarch taxes and those things some of the hard left are pushing, where you actually just say, well, you got a building, you have a family business, you owe us 8% of the business, But this is a chart, and this one's easy to find. Just go Google Manhattan Institute, Brian Riedel. He's done all sorts of charts like this, where he just takes CBO numbers, OMB numbers, and makes them sort of understandable. And you see all the little tax ideas don't get you anywhere close. But we can lie and pretend, right? So let's do a little more of this. As you start to understand the drivers of what's going on, remember I told you one of the deep, dark secrets we're not allowed to say. 100% of the borrowing that's scheduled for today through the next 30 years. Medicare is 75% of it. Social Security is 25%. No, that includes interest, so if you want to throw interest in there, but that's rolled into those, the financing of those programs. The rest of the budget's actually pretty much flat. And you look at charts like this, and you can find this one everywhere. I think we've even put it up on our website. You start to understand, when you start to see the explosion here, these three lines are net interest, Medicare, and Social Security. And everything else just lays flat, or actually falls as a percentage of discretionary. But we're not allowed to talk about this, because it doesn't fit the narrative where the political class has not told the truth. And let's be honest, those of us on the right, it's waste and fraud. it's foreign aid. And then the Democrats, rich people don't pay enough. I'm going to show some more rich people don't pay enough slides and show you complete fraud in math. And then there's the thing I'm fixated on, and I'm going to do more on Social Security because I'm not comfortable enough with my Medicare numbers yet. But you got to understand, Highway Trust Fund, well, that's gone in 3-4 more years. Okay, it's big, but it's not ginormous. The Medicare Trust Fund, we have gone in 7 years. It's big, but it's nothing compared to Social Security, which has gone in 9 years. Did anyone notice something there? The 3 big trust funds are gone within this 9-year window. How much discussion have you heard on how we're going to recapitalize these? We have a moral obligation to keep Social Security. We have a moral obligation to keep Medicare functional. Anyone here talking about how to do it? I have come behind this mic over and over and over and over, walking through how you could revolutionize the cost of healthcare. You got to be willing to legalize technology. Well, it turns out that upsets people because much of this is all about the money. But there's so many things we can do. There are so many good things happening out there. It's just, will we allow the good things to come to us before we've got ourselves in such a debt crisis that all we're doing is just paddling to survive? So, all right, let's do the thing that they train you the day after you get elected. A bunch of the really smart consultants sit down with you and say, David, welcome to Congress. There's this thing called a third rail. It has something to do with subways. I'm from the desert. We don't have subways. You're not allowed to talk about things like Medicare and Social Security because they'll run nasty ads about you and you'll get unelected. So let's tell the truth. Let's talk about Social Security. In 9 years, could be 8 years, this chart has a mistake on it. This is 2033, not 2034. In 2033, the Social Security Trust Fund has about a 25%, it's empty, and that causes about a 25% cut to the average recipient in America. This is 9 years away. That average cut will be $17,400. As we had testimony in the Ways and Means Committee, that will double senior poverty. Doubling of senior poverty is 9 years away. I was here on the floor last week already showing you that because of rents and other things and Biden inflation, you're already seeing the number of baby boomers in retirement who are ending up homeless. This is 9 years away. $616 billion. So when you show this to someone on the left, well, David, if we would just tax people over $400,000 a year and not give them any benefits, but we make them pay the entire 12.4% FICA tax, we're going to be fine. And then you do the math and you realize they've never actually put a calculator to that, have they? So one more time. In 9 years, $616 billion is the shortfall. In 9 years, everyone's getting a 25% cut. So let's do the first suggestion given to us by our Democrat colleagues. Just create a donut hole. You pay your FICA tax up to $160,200 today. It will go up with inflation over the next few years. And then you create a donut hole, and then people $400,000 and up, you get to pay the 12.4% tax. From that to the sky's the limit, whatever you make, but you get no benefits for it. Turns out our best estimate, and we have to work at these numbers to do this because for some reason no one wants to actually put these on charts. Our math comes out to about $86 billion. So you remember the chart before. Let's do this again. Sorry, but this is important because almost no one ever wants to talk about this. Do you see the $616 billion? That is the shortfall in 9 years. Taxing people the full FICA portion of Social Security at the 12.4 produces $86 billion. Does anyone notice a math problem? So let's do the hard left suggestion. David, we just need to get rid of that Social Security cap So we'll let them have benefits up to that 160,200, but every dime above that still pays the 12.4% tax. But you don't give them any benefits. All right, so this is lifting the cap. And I've had some of the most arrogant leftists over and over say, and that solves the problem, does it? One more time. The shortfall in 9 years, as our estimate, is $616 billion. Lifting the cap, our best estimate, produces about $164.7 billion. You get about 20% of it. This is what the brain trust around here has as a solution. It's we're just going to force the Republicans to just lift the cap on Social Security taxes and it will be fine. Really? Really? So you have 27 billion dollars. You're still short. And that's in the first year. That's in 1 year. You're still doubling senior poverty at these numbers. And this is the left's plan for us? Come on, people. This shouldn't be Republican or Democrat. But we had a president get behind that microphone and say we're not allowed to talk about this. Please understand, it is absolutely just abysmal that we're going to spend the next couple of weeks doing theatrics and fighting out, and we'll scrape out some savings. But those savings are going to be tiny compared to the scale of this sort of nuclear debt bomb. And this isn't way off in the future. This is no longer about your kids and your grandkids. This is you. This is your retirement. So let's actually do a couple other pieces of math that really upset people, but it's math. Okay, we're going to do something called expected present values. Why this is important is you have a lot of folks who somehow believe that they've paid in stunning amounts of money into Social Security and Medicare, and they're getting cheated. In some ways you actually are, but it may not be what you think. So what we're trying to show is lifetime taxes, lifetime benefits. The blue here is that purple. This is Social Security, Medicare, Medicare. On Social Security, the average couple, you get every dime back plus about $72,000. Now remember, if 25 years ago when George Bush tried and he was absolutely nuked by the retirement, I got to come up with a name for the folks who basically want to nationalize retirement, and the Democrats, President Bush ran around saying, could we just take a sliver of it and allow people to have their own private account? Oh, you're trying to privatize. Okay, well, too late now. That window long past. So you're going to put in several $100,000 into Social Security through your taxes. If this is an average couple, it works their 40 quarters. You get about a $72,000 spiff. It would be several times more than that if over those working years you'd been allowed to put that 15% or so into a private account. But water under the bridge. This is the brilliance left's economics. Primary driver of debt, though, turns out this is the lifetime Medicare taxes. It's about $200,000. And we're still working on updating the number, but our newest number is maybe just shy of $700,000 per couple on the benefits they're going to get from Medicare. Someone see a problem? Average couple, remember there's 76 million baby boomers. That couple will put in a couple $100,000 in Medicare, and they're probably getting close to $700,000 in benefits. That gap right there is the primary driver of U.S. sovereign debt. Almost no one will ever tell you that. And I don't take you through some of the more the same. My reason I keep coming behind this mic, I truly believe there are people out there in the public that want to be talked to like adults. Yes, you like getting, the stimuli of having someone say something angry and crazy and, go out and burn down but that's not how you save the republic. There are ways to stabilize this. There are ways for this to be another American century. But that clock is ticking on us. You think we're going to recapitalize? If the Medicare trust fund is how many $1 billion of shortfall starting in 7 years? I just showed you Social Security is 616 in its first year. Transportation's also gone in that time. Plus, we're heading into $3 trillion year deficits at the end of the decade. We're going to do 2.2 this year. This is moving away from us very, very, very fast. And I do need people out there to understand the difference between a million, a billion, and a trillion. Play with your calculator, see how many zeros are the difference. Don't let someone trying to get your vote pander to you by making crap up. If they're not being serious with you, because I will argue this is the thing that destroys your republic. This is what will make you much less free. This is what will take your freedoms from you, destroy your retirement, and heaven knows the misery we're leaving to our kids. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.